Alright, welcome to Worst to Best, a series where I'm ranking every gun within a weapon class after I unlock Diamond Camo and have tons of experience with each weapon. This episode is all about the launchers of Call of Duty Vanguard, and this video is going to be a bit different. There's no attachments for the launchers, there's no leveling up, you can use them at full power from the get-go at level 1, so I structured my rankings around which launcher is worth using post-camo grind, or just in general if you don't care about camos in Vanguard. Which launcher is the best at destroying kill streaks and or infantry? So let's jump into things. All I ask, if you enjoy the video, make sure you tap that like button and please consider subscribing to the channel. So with that said, coming in at the number 3 spot for the worst launcher in Vanguard is the M1 Bazooka. And yes, number 3 because there is a tie in this list. But there is no reason whatsoever to use the M1 Bazooka. Mostly because it deals the least amount of damage between all the launchers. Here's a comparison of the damage between all 4. You can see the M1 Bazooka is the least. Now, this didn't seem to affect the kill streaks and equipment that I tested, which was the spy plane, the counter spy plane, the flame knot, the dogs, and the Goliath. But the M1 Bazooka very well may take an extra shot for the ball turret gunner or for vehicles when the arms race mode launches in a few weeks. The M1 Bazooka also has the slowest aim down sight speed and the slowest sprint to fire time. It will also force you to aim down sight before firing. You're not allowed to fire this from the hip. And all of these things combined make the M1 Bazooka harder to use against infantry. Now, it's not the worst against infantry, but definitely nowhere near the best. Moving on to the number 2 spot, the runner-up for worst launchers in Vanguard is a tie between the Panzerschreck and the Mk11 Launcher. Like the M1 Bazooka, I still wouldn't recommend using either of these launchers, but they do have niche use cases which make them more useful than the M1 Bazooka. The Panzerschreck shares all the same stats as the M1 Bazooka, except it has a faster projectile velocity. Bazooka rockets travel about 10% slower. The other is that the Panzerschreck deals more damage, at least against vehicles, which is what both the Panzerschreck and the Bazooka are meant to specialize in. Now again, this didn't affect the kill streaks and equipment that I tested, and even though the Panzerschreck deals more damage, it actually feels less effective against infantry. It seems more inconsistent than the M1 Bazooka, which now that I think about it is likely due to like something with the blast radius fall off, which I didn't bother to test. But in the grand scheme of things, there's no need to because, I mean, you'll see when we get to the best launcher. Now, as for the Mk11, this is a grenade launcher rather than a rocket launcher, which is also unappealing because of the launcher at the best spot. But the Mk11 has a niche use case in ground level combat. The grenades are fired in an arc, which makes it easier to place your explosives. Launchers are a bit harder to place because you're going to need a direct line of sight to where you want to fire your rocket. So for example, if there's like, you're playing a hard point, for example, and there's an enemy camping in a tricky corner, you can easily just, arc that grenade right next to them, whereas the launcher may need to be fired upon from higher ground to get the rocket in the right spot. On top of all that, the Mk11 has a slightly faster movement speed than the rocket launchers and faster handling overall, which you'll see the stats for that in just a second. But in the end, at the number 1 spot, the Panzerfoss is simply the best and the only launcher you should be using post-camo grind. There's no reason to use any other launcher currently in the game. The Panzerfoss actually deals the most damage to infantry and to kill streaks, and there is a difference with this additional damage. The Panzerfoss will actually 3-shot a flame knot, where all other rocket launchers will take 4 shots. I didn't test the ball turret and vehicles for this, but I assume this will also apply to the ball turret gunner and probably vehicles when they get added to multiplayer. I think I mentioned this, but I want to reiterate that this feels the best against infantry as well. There also is no shot delay with the Panzerfoss, and it can be fired from the hip, unlike the M1 Bazooka and the Panzerschreck. The Panzerfoss has the fastest aim down sight speed, the fastest sprint to fire time, and it has a faster fire rate by a notable margin. You can get off way more rockets with this Panzerfoss compared to the other rocket launchers, which means you're going to be destroying kill streaks faster, which is the main purpose for these types of weapons. I mean, the only downside to the Panzerfoss is that it has the slowest projectile velocity. It's about 20% slower than the Panzerschreck. But that doesn't really matter because all that means you have to do is just lead the spy plane a little bit more before you fire your rocket off. So, I mean, you look at all the stats. Actually, I'll throw all the stats on the screen right now so you can just take a quick glance at them. I mean, you can see the Panzerfoss is clearly, like, the best, which is funny because I thought the Panzerfoss was bad because I had so much negativity associated with it around launch. Like, I had hard challenges, I had, like, glitch challenges. I think I had the lowest damage, took, like, 2 shots to destroy UAVs. But the several changes Sledgehammer made the Panzerfoss absolutely amazing. One last thing worth mentioning that didn't really fit earlier in this video is the flight path for these rocket launchers. I tested them and it turns out there's not much randomness to the flight paths after firing each launcher in this game. In previous games, like, rockets would literally curve around kill streaks and things like that, but each rocket is fairly straight and all the aerial kill streak hitboxes are very large, so flight path is just not a stat that you need to be concerned about in Vanguard. But yeah, if you're wondering what launcher to use the Panzerfoss. It's the most effective and it's the easiest to use against kill streaks and infantry. Just completely ignore the bazooka and the Panzerschreck. If that changes, I will be sure to update y'all. But hey, maybe you disagree. If that's the case, as always, you're encouraged to comment your own worst to best list down below for the launchers. Obviously, there's no attachments or class setups for me to share with you, so make sure you check out the worst to best playlist if you want to see more videos like this. Don't forget to tap that like button, consider subscribing to the channel. If you want to help support the channel directly, you can check out some of the links towards the bottom of the description. Catch you on the next one. Peace.